Hello, this is Archie Dunlop with Talking Astrology with Archie on Saturday, June the 24th, 2023. I had an astrology teacher. Her name was Olivia Barclay, and I'm afraid she has been dead for over 20 years. And Olivia was a Sagittarian, and she did not mince her words. And I can remember being in a pub with her and a lot of other astrologers in Walton-on-Thames. We were commemorating the life of the 17th century astrologer William Lilly. And she started talking about Arians, people who have their sun in Aries. And she said, all Arians are bastards. As a sweeping, absolute statement. Now, I think that's a bit over the top. I know lots of Arians, lots of people with their sun in Aries, and a lot of them are generous, exciting people, and they're certainly not bastards. But I kind of understand what she's saying. She's saying that, the sun in Aries, people who have the sun in Aries, they do what they want. If they want to do it, they do it. And they don't care about other people. And so that might be what she means when she says that all Arians are bastards. But if you are an Aries and you're upset, don't take it personally. I am just reporting what my astrology teacher told me. I'm just reporting it. That's all I'm doing. And so, yeah, don't get too upset. Now, talking about the sign Aries, we've just heard, unfortunately, that everyone on board the Titan, this submersible going down to explore the Titanic, but they're all dead. There was an implosion, probably. I think there was an implosion, and so we're focusing on the passengers. Now, yesterday I talked about one of the passengers, Hamish Harding, but I talked about him simply because he was the only one I could find birth details for. But now we know the birth details, or at least some of the birth details, of the pilot of the submersible, who was also the CEO of this company, Ocean Gate, which was running these trips to the Titanic. And so this man, Stockton Rush, there's his photo. Stockton Rush, he was born on March the 31st, 1962. Yeah, that's 2 months before me. And he was born on the anniversary of the day on which the Titanic was laid down. I think the Titanic was laid down on March the 31st, 1909. So, what I'm going to do is look at his horoscope. And what I want to show you is that we have a really good signature of his death. It's really clean, it's beautiful, it describes it perfectly. I'm sorry to use that kind of language, but, astrologers were a morbid lot, and we like to do this kind of stuff, or at least maybe they don't anymore. Maybe astrologers, the latest generation of astrologers, they don't like to get involved in anything morbid. It's all nice, fuzzy stuff. No, I've no idea. But so let's look at Stockton Rush's horoscope. So there you have it. There's his sun in Aries. He likes to do what he wants. He doesn't like to be obstructed. There are reports that he was impatient with regulation. He didn't want to have to worry about regulations. He seemed to regard safety as not the most important thing, as far as I understand it. It was all about exploring the bottom of the ocean, getting that submarine down. If you have to worry about safety and regulations, you're never going to get anything done. Isn't that right? I mean, I can understand that. I started this YouTube channel, and I understand the presentation is still terrible. I'm still using my webcam, and it's, I haven't put any effort into it. But, I took the view. I just wanted to get, I've been delaying it for long enough. I just wanted to get going, and I've got Moon in Aries, so I just went for it. But I don't think anyone's going to die because of this YouTube channel. At least I hope not. In Stockton Rush's case, it's quite possible, well, I think it's quite likely that people have died because of his haste, not going through all the regulations, not giving safety the priority it should have been given. So there's the Sun in Aries, also got Venus in Aries. Then if we look up the chart, now I should say, this chart is set for noon on March the 31st, 1962. I do not have a time of birth to emphasize, and he was born in San Francisco. And so he's got 3 planets in Pisces. That makes sense for someone wanting to go to the bottom of the sea. Jupiter in Pisces, Mars in Pisces, Mercury in Pisces. Mars is where you put your energy. So if you have Mars in Pisces, you may want to put your energy into the sea. Diving, swimming, being a submariner, piloting a submersible. That makes sense. And then we've got these bodies in Aquarius. He's got the Moon in Aquarius. So instinctively, he's quite independent-minded. He likes to do things his way. And that kind of echoes what we were hearing from Sun in Aries. But this Moon, which is a very instinctive thing, it's instinctively wanting to do things his way, instinctively perhaps wanting to be a bit different, is conjunct the South Node. That indicates maybe that this approach relates to the past. It's the line of least resistance. If you believe in reincarnation, that's what he was doing, perhaps in a past life. But it's not where he should be going. It's his independent-mindedness is not perhaps helpful. So that is an issue. There's Neptune. Neptune, planet of the sea, is possibly square his Moon. Now, we don't know precisely where his Moon is because we only have a midday. We don't have a time of birth. But his Moon will be roughly between 6 Aquarius and 20 Aquarius. So Neptune is sort of squaring his Moon. Now, as far as the elements are concerned, as you know if you've been watching my videos, elemental balance is very important to me. And one of the first things you should do when you look at a chart is to see what elements the different planets are in, with particular emphasis on the traditional planets. What element Uranus, Neptune, or Pluto is in is really not very important. We should be focusing on Sun, Moon, Venus, Mercury, Jupiter. Sun, Moon, Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn. Those 7 bodies. And so we can see he has got, of these traditional bodies, he's got 2 in fire signs. He's got 3 in water signs, so that's 5. And then he's got 2 planets in air signs, but he doesn't have any Earth. No planets in Earth. That's fine. Donald Trump doesn't have any planets in Earth, but of course Donald Trump isn't a submariner. So this as far as can see, Stockton Rush, you know, he has put a lot of effort into flying in his earlier life. Now he's putting his effort. He until he died, he was putting his effort into going undersea, but underwater. But what about the Earth? There's a certain lack of grounding there, and perhaps this is reflected by his approach to things like safety and regulations. You know, if he had some Virgo in his chart, for example, then he would have taken regulations probably more seriously. If he had Capricorn, you know, there's a certain sensibleness to Capricorn, but it wasn't there. And it's interesting that I think in the industry there was a lot of criticism about the way he was building his submarines. I think, you know, was his submarine made of carbon fiber or something, and something like that. And there's a lot of criticisms of using that particular material. The material perhaps just was not grounded enough, and you know, perhaps what he was doing there was too much of a fantasy there, that this could work. So the lack of grounding didn't really help, I don't think. Now, as far as death is concerned, I like to look at Mars and Saturn. Now, Mars and Saturn are the death pair. So here is his Mars, here is his Saturn. Where is the Mars-Saturn midpoint? So, well, you can calculate the Mars-Saturn midpoint. Mars-Saturn midpoint, you know, this program has a facility for working out midpoints, and so these are his midpoints. Now, let's make this bigger. I'm not going to spend too long here, but you know, we're looking for his Mars-Saturn midpoint. We want to know where his Mars-Saturn midpoint is, it's sort of there it is. His Mars-Saturn midpoint is at 1219 cardinal or 2719 fixed. So remember that, 1219 or 2719. 1219 cardinal or 2719 fixed. So it's at 2719 Aquarius. That's where his Mars-Saturn midpoint is. And we look across and we see Uranus at 2653 Leo. So he has Uranus opposition his Mars-Saturn midpoint. Now that was the position when he was born. So from the moment he was born, there was always the potential to have a very Uranus death. Uranus would be about maybe an explosion or something unusual. Let's see. If I look at Reinhold Ebertin's book, Combination of Stellar Influences, let's see what when we look up Mars and Saturn, see what we see for Uranus. Uranus on the Mars-Saturn. Ebertin says, extraordinary and unusual powers of resistance, the ability to give as well as to take under provocation, the inclination to use brute force. Then a test of nervous strength, intervention by higher power or by providence, a sudden illness, a sudden accident, separation, or a case of death. So, you know, that's one view of Uranus on the Mars-Saturn. It represents a sudden death, a sudden separation. So that's always there as potential. So what actually triggers this potential? So remember what I said, 2719. Because it's 2719 or 1219 cardinal. So let's now look at his solar arc directions. Now, let me explain what a solar arc direction is. A solar arc direction means that you take the horoscope and you move every single planet in the horoscope by 1 degree for every year of life. And solar arc directions is particularly popular, in the German schools of astrology, like Eberton's approach to astrology, the Hamburg school. So you click everything one, you click the planets 1 degree. And so if he was born, he died at the age of 61. So if you wanted to know about the solar arc directions for when he was 61, you'd click it forward 61 degrees. So let's look at his solar arc directions for when the submarine imploded. Now, I want to look at one solar arc direction, because I haven't got time to go on and on. I want to look at Neptune. Notice that Neptune is at 12:24 Capricorn. Solar arc directed Neptune had moved to 12:24 Capricorn, which is the same as 27, which is also aspecting 27:24 of the fixed signs. So what that means is that Neptune is, solar arc directed Neptune is, if we go to, there is his Mars-Saturn midpoint. So solar arc directed Neptune is exactly 45 degrees, that's a semi-square, to his Mars-Saturn midpoint. And he has Uranus on the Mars-Saturn midpoint. So that's all very simple, isn't it? Neptune is a planet of the sea. He has this natal Uranus on the Mars-Saturn midpoint. Neptune comes along and there's the explosion, or rather the implosion. So I think in his case, we could see pretty clearly how he was going to die. Now, I don't have a time of birth. I can't say for sure the exact day when this direction would have come exact, but we do have a very clear signature, a very, very clear signature of his death, because Uranus, Mars, Saturn is the pressure, is the potential for this explosion or implosion. Neptune comes along, and Neptune is, of course, the weight of the water, and that's it. I mean, that's a signature for his death. The unfortunate thing is that he took other people with him. It would have been better if he had gone down on his own, So if you are being piloted to the bottom of the oceans, if do check the horoscope of the pilot, because you don't really want to get caught up in his fate, unless, of course, it is your fate to be caught up in his fate. Anyway, that's all I'm going to say about the Titanic and this terrible disaster. I mean, it's not okay. 5 people were killed. I mean, what's really awful is the 19-year-old boy who was killed. I mean, Daily Mail said he didn't want to go down. He just did it to please his father, because it was Father's Day. That's really bad. Anyway, I'm not going to say any more. This is I think the 3rd day in a row I've talked about it, and tomorrow I will talk about something else. Now, as far as today's astrology is concerned, today is Saturday, June the 24th, 2023. So what's going on? The moon is still in Virgo. It's making an aspect to Uranus, but it's not very exciting. Moon in Virgo is not the most exciting place for the moon to be. The trine to Uranus, it eventually happens, but I I don't think, I don't think it's that exciting. So I don't think we can expect a great day. I don't think it's going to be necessarily a bad day. I just don't think much is going to be going on. A couple of points though. The Sun is aspecting the Venus-Mars midpoint. So you can see there's the Sun making a 45 degree to Venus-Mars at midpoint. That's quite sexually charged. So in terms of relationships, it might be interesting, depending on where you are in the relationship. But if sex is important to you, it may be that the Sun on the 45 degree from a Venus hitting the Venus-Mars midpoint, might help, might make you more attractive. So that's something to consider. Saturn is on the Mercury-Mars. He's hitting the Mercury-Mars midpoint. Now, Mercury-Mars is about verbal stuff. It's about arguing. It's about using your energy to get results through your arguments. And then you put Saturn on that. Some people are going to use some really unpleasant language. I'm not necessarily saying swearing, but just using language to take people down. And so we have to be careful of that. We have to be careful what we say, because the words that come out of our mouth could cause a lot of hurt. And by the same token, the things people say might hurt us. If we do find ourselves on the receiving end of someone's unpleasant language or attempts to, upset us, do us down, don't take it too seriously. Saturn will eventually move off the Mercury-Mars midpoint. So yeah, don't get too upset by that. But overall, I don't think it's a particularly good day. I think it's a little boring for most of us, and I think probably it'll be better when the moon gets out of Virgo. Or maybe I'm just being biased. The real action, the good stuff from Moon and Virgo has already happened. When Moon was trine Jupiter. Now, I think it's not going to do a great deal for the rest of its passage through the sign. But don't worry, it'll move on. So as far as my forecasts for the 12 signs are concerned, here they are. Aries, you're in a strange mood. On one hand, things are somewhat tedious. On the other hand, there are moments of rising anger. But a sense of calm is important. Taurus, you can stir things up and cause considerable chaos. But maybe, under certain circumstances, it's the right thing to do. But whatever you do, you must enjoy yourself. Gemini, you're not in the mood for high-profile socializing, but through sheer willpower, you can get stunning results. Cancer, you focus on the details, particularly in your written and spoken communications. As a result, you're able to make your point. Leo, you're charismatic and your sex appeal is close to maximum. I mean, that's because the Sun in Cancer is aspecting, the Sun is ruler of Leo, and it's hitting the Venus-Mars midpoint. So Leo, you are charismatic and your sex appeal is close to maximum, and you can engineer a surprise situation which leads to a financial gain. Virgo, you're drifting a little, which is a shame because you're very well placed. You need to stop and focus on the one thing that matters most to you. Libra, when it comes to other people, trust your feelings. Bad behavior shouldn't be forgiven, and apologies shouldn't necessarily be accepted. Scorpio, the day has lots of potential but somehow it won't be realized. Perhaps big promises get watered down into nothing. Sagittarius, it's difficult to get attention unless you do something dramatic, and even then the gains are short-lived. Capricorn, you know how to use cutting language, how to argue until you get your way, but in the process your popularity might suffer. Aquarius, like Capricorn, your verbal skills are excellent, and matters are helped by your profound understanding of human psychology. And finally, Pisces, you're not in full control, and outside forces can't be ignored. However, if you look at the situation logically, you'll realize that you have most of the power. Anyway, that's all I'm going to say in terms of astrology, and I will now turn to the I Ching. So, as usual, I threw 3 coins in the air, and I asked the question, what is Saturday going to be like for visitors to my YouTube channel? So, the first hexagram I got was influence. So, we're in a position where we can have influence over the world around us. And the Wilhelm version of the I Ching also talks about wooing. So, from a romantic perspective, if we're trying to attract someone, we might have some success. Perhaps this echoes what I was saying about the Sun making the semi-square to the Venus-Mars midpoint. But the I Ching makes an interesting point about influence. It says that if we can't ourselves be influenced, then we cannot influence. So if we want to have an influence on the world around us, we must be prepared to be ourselves influenced by this world. We can't just shut out what's going on. We can't ignore what people are telling us. We have to accept it, and then we'll be in a better position to influence the world around us, because it's all about communication, because influence is about two-way communication. And this hexagram, it moves, and it moves to hexagram number 62, preponderance of the small. So yes, we are able to have an influence, but we shouldn't expect huge results, at least not to begin with. Indeed, we must make an effort to discipline ourselves. If we try to get everything at once, we're not gonna get it. And maybe this also links to what I was saying, that Virgo, the moon in Virgo, is not making any great aspects in the short term. We have to probably wait until the moon moves into Libra. So we must be satisfied with small gains, and influence is a slow process. We must slowly make our influence felt, and be prepared. We must be prepared to be influenced. We must be prepared to listen, and we must we must not expect fast results, because it's all about self-discipline, and as well also some humility, and that it's all about listening to other people, because if we want to have an influence over other people, we do have to listen. So what needs to be done. It's going to be a relatively quiet weekend, probably, or at least it should be a quiet weekend. Just be satisfied with small gains. Anyway, that's all I'm going to say for today. And I will talk to you tomorrow.